Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel, Saturday Night Live style. Thank you for tuning in. We also want to thank everyone for your continuous support. The Grand Solar Minimum channel. As you all know, we had a discussion with Valentina Sarkova about her latest paper that is published in nature.com on June 24th of 2019. And again, I can't thank you enough to all the listeners and the viewers out there who watched this video and are sharing it right now. A lot of you understand what's happening, and it's just it's good to see that the message is finally now starting to get through a little bit. And I'm starting tonight like this just because I just want to show my appreciation to our supporters out there, our people who follow this channel. And you guys give great insight as well. We've got several GSM contributors to the channel. Special shout out tonight to Matt Bros out in Nebraska. Starman, of course, your work has been detrimental. Scott Chapman, back to Matt real quick. And brother, I really appreciate your video footage. I'm learning a lot about some of the minor things in farming, that's for sure, and it is fascinating. Please continue to send me that footage. It will become useful. Matt has given us permission to share it, so I want to show a couple things from that, but that won't happen tonight. But again, I just want to thank all of our subscribers, our followers, people who contribute to this channel. And it's this continuing to work together and keeping what's important in front of you, and don't let anything else distort that message. And that's been Zarkova's attitude. If you watched her presentation in from October of 2018, and she gets that little, you know what happens to people when they say things they're not supposed to, and she fights right back and she says, "I'm not scared. I don't care what others say about what I should or shouldn't say." That was her response to the host, who made it, which almost sounded like a threatening gesture to me. But anyway, let's get going with the show. We could talk more about Zarkova. Again, checking out our space weather right now. Our solar wind speed sitting at a 319.2 kilometers per second with a density of 6.5. And we are blank again, but there is a small area of a sunspot that's trying to emerge here on the disk, according to spaceweather.com. They have it circled. As you see, barely can see this dark core if it is emerging at all. As of right now, we are still 0 and 1 day without sunspots so far, bringing us up to 110 days for the year. Let's take a look at some more space weather stats here at thegrandsolarminimum.com. Our solar proton flux, X-ray flux, very low, and our KP indices sitting at a 1. And we actually had a all-time, or not all-time, but a 0 KP earlier today as well. So very low KP indices, very low solar wind right now. It's safe to say that we're probably looking at some more 6.5 to 7 point magnitude earthquakes in the upcoming future here within the next 2 to 4 days. And part of this too, we will have solar winds affecting our Earth's magnetic field by around July 4th. And this is the culprit. Let's see if my arrow is up tonight. Is it? I don't think it is. Boo. All right. Well, you guys can see the coronal hole that's right there just south of the equatorial region. That is what's expected to affect us on July 3rd and July 4th. And imagine if you live in an area where you can spot auroras during this time, what an awesome sight this would be during 4th of July. I want to note here on the edge of the eastern limb, watch the very beginning, we see a filament release. And that is not Earth facing, but it is very clear here at the very eastern, right there. You guys can see something flying off there. So fortunately, this is something that was not Earth facing and likely will not affect Earth's magnetic field, but we will continue to monitor this active region. And let's take a look too. We see that sunspot right there at the equatorial region is not yet numbered. So we're not calling it a sunspot, but they are watching it as an area of interest. And taking a look at the whole side of everything, there is that active region that's coming around the eastern limb. But guys, check this out when we get to the negative 90. Look at that. Some nasty coronal holes possible on the very possibility short-term future here. And we look at it again, we have a coronal hole that we see that's coming to Earth facing. And then just behind the eastern limb, we have a possibility for another active region, possibly a sunspot. I don't know. We'll see what happens as it emerges from the eastern limb. And a chance for some more coronal hole action, creating solar winds that will penetrate the Earth's atmosphere with cosmic rays and highly charged particles, obviously. So a quiet sun, once again, the only thing we're watching is this current active region right Earth facing as we speak. Taking a look at our TSI for June, well, this looks like to be June 20th, 2019, coming in at 1360.63. So TSI kind of leveling off once again in the 0.6 values as before we've seen a little bit of a spike here over the past couple of weeks. So let's get right into it, folks. Back to grandsolarminimum.com. Summer snow in West Mongolia. Unexpected summer snowfall was in the southwestern mountainous parts of Bayangyugi province of Mongolia on June 28, 2019. According to their meteorological bureau out there, the completely surprising snowfall had a precipitation of about 1/10 of an inch of snow. It was brought to the country by a powerful cyclone from Siberia. Not a lot of information from this article, but just to point out, it wasn't 1/10. It was just barely 1/10 of an inch of snow, but the temperatures were at least cold enough for a slight accumulation. So that just gives you an idea of how cold we're seeing some areas that shouldn't be in any kind of winter season whatsoever. Thanks to Watchers.news for kind of giving us the heads up. France breaks all-time temperature record. I'm going to go ahead and report this in two different parts of our show tonight. First, I'm going to go ahead and give you the headline because we are fair and we'll show you both sides, or are we? And we'll get into that later. Severe heat wave affecting much of Europe this week brought allegedly record-breaking temperatures, including all-time highs in France. Meteo France has raised the hazardous weather warning up to red, the highest level. This is the first time the agency has activated a red alert since the system was introduced in 2003. There have been 15,000 heat-related deaths just since the past 16 years. Across the country, temperatures 45 degrees Celsius, that's 113 degrees Fahrenheit, marked the first time ever today. And we have a lot of temperatures here. The top one here, the 45.9 degrees, that's 114.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The second highest temperature was 113.7 degrees. Some very, very high records, folks. In fact, this one here, allegedly smashed a record of 44.1 degrees as they smashed it with a 45.9 degrees Celsius. All right, that's pretty big. At the country level, Thursday, June 28th, is for the moment the hottest ever measured in June with an 82 degrees Fahrenheit. The thermal indicator average temperatures reached yesterday a value of, I think they might have put 15.4 above normal for the whole country. So, yes, these are hot temperatures, but 15.4 degrees above normal for the whole country is widespread heat wave. That's what we're looking at, guys. I got a comment about the heat wave in France. Folks are trying to use this as, well, this is definitely not lining up with what you guys are talking about. Of course not. It's summer. Nobody here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel or any of the Grand Solar Minimum channels that report on this are telling you that it's going to be freezing cold everywhere in the summer months in the northern hemisphere. Yes, we are seeing certain regions recording cold and snow, but again, we are at the very, very, very beginning, so we're not going to see those extreme widespread conditions of, an entire global phenomenon of, instant cooling overnight. But looking at the temperature anomaly map here through Thursday into Friday and just seeing how this heat dome just basically parks right over France and some of the UK, and then as we get closer to the weekend or early next week, we start to see a little bit cooler than average temperatures for the 1st of July, folks. And some of that purple is going to be near Denmark. I mean, they're going from one extreme to the next within a period of 7 to 8 days. So very interesting stuff on the horizon for Europe. Forecast for the hot weather now. And then after we get past this heat wave, we start to see temperatures below average in that region. Thanks again to Watchers.news. They're only reporting the information that's being given to them by the government agencies of these countries and cities that are telling us that we are breaking records in France. But I'll have more on that as we get into the show. And before I get into the net, I got Starman's Twitter feed here in the on our website. And it's funny sometimes while I'm doing the show, there's always something on his Twitter feed that kind of gets me to laugh a little bit and maybe throws me off from the show. But this is a common picture I'm seeing on Twitter and Facebook, people joking about their sunburns or people who are getting sunburnt right now. And I work around a lot of people in the public, and I've noticed for this time of the summer, Now, granted, I live in an area where there's a lot of beach going. A lot of people go to the lake for leisure time, and I get that. But I've been here for a full year, so I remember how people looked last year. And I'm telling you, a lot more sunburns, a lot of people who are just like a dark brown, like they've been cooking in the sun for days. But I noticed a lot of joking out there about sunburns, but this is kind of catching my attention here. The UV rays are really harmful. Last summer, Father's Day weekend in Buffalo, me and the family, we all went to the beach for 2 hours, packed it up, went home. Later that night, Mari is treating a severe sunburn on my back, and I do believe everybody got a little red after that incident. But of all my life, I've always been a guy who kind of absorbs the sun and gets dark myself. To this day, I have a scar about the size of a basketball on my back that's still red from that sunburn of last summer. So there's proof right there, just not for me, but folks all over. The UVs are intense, and it's a little concerning, especially a guy like myself. I don't burn ever. I'm 41 years old, and I've never quite had the sun results on my skin the way I've seen it here in the last 12 to 16 months. All right, so thank you, Starman, for providing the show interrupter picture there. Awesome stuff there, buddy. Anyway, just kidding. We love you. All right, check out another deep earthquake, 6.4, North Mariana Islands. The deep earthquake was registered by the USGS at 6.4 at Northern Mariana. About 1551 UTC on June 28th. The agency reporting the depth of about 285 miles. And this is basically just basic information of the region and what we are monitoring right now. No information on any damage, of course, no tsunamis or anything like that. Just reporting on another 6.3 or higher earthquake that we seem to continue to get in the middle of the ocean. We're talking about earthquakes near New Zealand also, plus we have things popping off near Papua New Guinea. Speaking of Papua New Guinea, things popping off for sure. A high-level eruption yesterday at Manam Volcano, ash up to 50,000 feet. So let's recap. Thanks to this particular area, PNG, we have seen eruptions of 40 and 50 and 30,000 feet several times. Plus, we had a 63,000 feet ash plume from Yilan. 2 major eruptions from that volcano. And we keep seeing eruptions out here. Again, this is part of the grand solar minimum effects of our planet with the weak magnetic field absorbing all this cosmic radiation, heating up our planet from the inside. Meanwhile, we're heating up in the core and expanding while we're cooling in the atmosphere, which will cause contraction. And yes, folks, that means more earthquakes and more volcanic eruptions. So here we have another one to talk about. June 27th. According to locals, eruption started with thundering noise around 1500 UTC. Satellite imagery acquired around 22 UTC. June 27th indicated that volcanic ash rising up to 40,000 feet, drifting west. The ash cloud was rising up to 50,000 as it detached from the volcano by 700 UTC on June 28th, continuing to move southwest. Traces of the ash are still about 15,000 feet up, are still discernible in multispectral satellite imagery. However, the signal is largely SO2 rich. Volcanic ash at 50,000 feet is expected to dissipate within 12 hours. And reports of ongoing 15,000 feet is further aided by superheated pyroclastic flow to the west and northeast of the crater. And here is that cloud coverage. I mean, look at this, guys. And we see the lines in the clouds, folks. I gotta believe that that's our magnetic field pushing down our atmosphere and making these clouds appear to have wavy lines in them. But just, again, I read somewhere today that we're looking at 80% cloud coverage of the world right now. I believe that. I believe that big time. Menem's eruption comes just 2 days after the powerful eruption at Yilan volcano, about 440 miles to the east. Yilan erupted on June 25th, about 2200. That's the 63,000 feet. The eruption forced people to evacuate, thousands. So Yilan, Menem, not too far apart, busting out several explosions now that have reached higher than 50,000 feet in one little area. You have to start wondering when the local climate is going to start seeing the effect of this. And maybe we'll take a look at some ocean temperatures too. We should start watching that on a daily basis, especially all the volcanic activity that we have going on right now. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the second part of our show tonight. Stick around.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.